Hi everyone, it's Laura from Sweet Handmade Cookies. Welcome back to the Sweet Handmade Cookies kitchen, where today I'm working on a set of beautiful baby shower cookies. My cookies are delicious, and one of the secrets to that is the delicious dough that I create. And I start by getting the butter ready, and I do that by warming up the butter in the microwave instead of allowing the butter to warm at room temperature. Don't like the temperature variations that happens between a colder kitchen in the winter and a warmer kitchen in the summer. So what I do is I just take the butter right out of the fridge, I slice that butter, and then I put it in the microwave at 20% power for about 6 minutes. And I'm working here with 454 grams of butter, which is a pound. And that gives me the same consistency of butter every time. I've cracked the eggs, and now I'm splitting vanilla bean lengthwise and scraping the seeds from that vanilla bean. I am going to put the sugar in my mixing bowl. And then I'm also going to weigh my flour and salt. I always weigh my dry ingredients for absolute accuracy. And then I'm going to mix all those ingredients together till I get the dough that I need, and I'm going to start rolling the dough. If you have watched any of my previous videos, you will be familiar with my Eugene dough sheeter. This is a wonderful tool that I use in my kitchen to roll my dough instead of using a rolling pin. I use this sheeter. I roll the dough in these extra large freezer bags, and then I also store the dough in my freezer until I'm ready to use it. And so the next step is to get the dough ready for cutting out the shapes. And so I pulled this dough out of the freezer and allowed it to come up to room temperature for about 20 minutes. And then now I'm cutting the shapes for this set. And this set has 3 different cookie shapes. There are onesies, bibs, and flowers. And the customer and I came up with this design because she was really taken with the baby Goodyear set that was on my website. The whole time I worked on this set, I kept thinking of it as the baby Goodyear set, even though this set had nothing to do with baby Goodyear. It just was inspired by that set I made last year. And so I'm going to finish cutting out the bibs and then move on to the flower set. And then I'm also going to start loading up cookie sheets because I feel like I can do both the baking and the cutting of the cookies at the same time. Here I am loading up a cookie sheet, and then I'm going to load up another one. And then while I start cutting out these flowers, my oven comes to temperature, and I turn around to slide in the first tray. Oh, here I go. And then, multitasking doesn't always work because I thought maybe I pressed that cookie cutter down hard enough, but I didn't. And so now I'm struggling to get this cookie out of the dough. I think a cookie cutter back on. No, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do it. And I don't. It actually is super raggedy, and it's just a dud. And so that's what happens sometimes when you multitask. I start really pressing hard now to make sure I can get those cookies out, and they come out pretty much perfect every time. I do have a few more problems. In this one, I believe it is, I break one of the little pieces off. So I pull it out. I'm going to sort of like just shove it back together. That'll work. Oh, I break off another little piece. It's a bit of a disaster, but the oven is quite forgiving and will often attach little broken pieces. So I'm just extra careful with that one as I place it on the cookie sheet, and the rest come out perfectly. And then I bake up the rest of those cookies, and then I can get going on to the next steps. The scraps get re-rolled, so I gather them up, and now it's time to start working on the royal icing. So the first step is to mix meringue powder with water. The idea just is to get that meringue powder moistened and dissolve any of the larger bits of meringue powder. And then I'm going to put that mixture onto my stand mixer. I'm going to whip it up until it reaches like a soft peak. You can see that here. And then I'm going to start adding my sugar. I add 1 kilo just all together at once. I add the rest of the water. And then the other bag, I just add a little bit at a time until everything in there has fully incorporated. And it makes a beautiful icing. It's smooth, it's It's just so lovely to work with, and it tastes really good. I love my royal icing. You can see it's very thick. I like to start with a thick icing and thin it as I need it. You'll see later I'm going to use some thick icing on these cookies. Gorgeous. Now I'm going to take press and seal, and I'm going to cover up the bowl. I'm going to cover it tightly, and this allows the royal icing to stay soft and not form a crust on the top, because that's what royal icing does. And then I can use it over the next day or so. And so now I'm measuring out royal icing. I'm going to make 3 colors. I'm going to make white, light pink, and dark pink. So I'm measuring out the amounts I need, and there I didn't make you sit through all of the coloring process. Those are the colors I need. And now I'm getting started on flooding the cookies. And so this first cookie is the one that's going to have flowers. It'll have some leaves and stems and berries. It'll be very pretty. And so I'm going to flood each one of these cookies, and I always flood my cookies the same way. I outline the cookies, and then I fill them in with the same consistency icing, and that consistency smooths out very nicely. And so the secret to having the right consistency is really the secret to a beautiful cookie. It needs to be thick enough that it doesn't fall off the edge of the cookie, and it needs to be thin enough so that it smooths out beautifully on the top, like you see these cookies here. And it takes some practice, but once you got that, you're golden. Tap my cookie, work on any air bubbles I see, smooth out any lumps or bumps. There, that set is done. And now I'm moving on to the bib cookies. And these cookies I'm making in the darker of the 2 pinks. And I'm just going to flood that whole tray. Takes about a minute a cookie. And these ones are quite easy to do, just in that the corners are all very nice and rounded, and not too many intricate little corners on there. I find the flooding process of any set to be very relaxing. I really enjoy it. Look how beautiful those cookies look. So smooth and so shiny, and just so pretty. And now I'm moving on to the onesies. And these onesies I'm doing in the lighter pink. And they take about a minute to flood. But then I add a little embellishment to each one of these cookies that actually takes 2 minutes per cookie. And you might wonder, what is that embellishment? Well, I decided to add polka dots to this little onesie for a little bit of interest. And I put the little polka dots on in little clusters of 3. And that takes like 1 minute of flooding time up to 3 minutes. I think it's worth it. I think they turned out really great. And the technique I'm using here is called wet on wet. And what that means is that flood icing that I covered the cookie with is very wet still. I just put it on, and now I'm coming back with some more icing of the same consistency, and I'm putting that right on top, and that icing will actually just sink right in, so you'll get the color, but you won't get any bumps or lumps from that. So I'm going to do the whole tray. You can see that effect now here in the cookies here in the forefront, how those little dots are just even with the icing. And of course I work really hard to make sure that they're spaced out nicely so that they look good. It's surprising how sometimes when you try to freehand something, it can get really messy. So you really have to work hard to make sure everything is precise. I can do this freehand. I did another set recently where I had to put on stripes, and I ended up having to redo the cookies because I thought I'd be able to freehand the stripes, and they turned out so unattractive. And you have to be able to see that, right? Oh, wait, this isn't working after all. Let me fix that up. Okay, last one here of the set. And now these cookies are going to dry overnight so that I can handle them easily the next day. Last few dots. And now it's time for the embellishments. So the cookies were flooded in the light pink with the white dots, and now I'm using the darker of the pinks to do an outline for the cookie. I'm also going to add some little cuffs on the sleeves. I'll add some buttons on the top there and on the bottom. And then I'm going to add a couple of stripes at the waist area of the onesie. And because the icing is dry now, all of these little embellishments actually are raised. And now the finishing touches for these is a little greenery and then a sweet little flower. And for that, I had to use very thick icing. Now moving on to the bibs. No name yet for this baby girl. We're just calling her baby girl. And then we're going to finish the embellishment on the bibs. And if you have heard me talk in other videos, you know that I love a production line, and this to me is like the dream. I don't know why I've always really loved the idea of a production line. I think I like the idea of a group of people all working together and being super efficient. And so the first thing of the production line, of which I am the only worker, is to add a white outline to this cookie. And so every one of the cookies is going to get outlined in white. And then there's also going to be 2 little buttons, because you know you have to have some way to close the bib. And with this one, I make a little mistake right there, right there. Try to fix it. I come back with a little scribe tool, just pull off that little mistake and repipe it. There. And now the last few in the outline. And I like adding the white to these pinks. It really made it nice and crisp. And doing all of them in a row means that I don't have to continually pick up the piping bag. Like if I was switching colors after each cookie, I would just picking up the piping bag and then placing it in your hand just takes a little bit of extra time. So just being able to do the same cookie again and again, or use the same icing again and again, is just handy. Now I'm adding some flower embellishments to each one of these cookies. And now it's time to add some flowers. And for this, I'm using very stiff icing. So the icing that comes right out of the mixing bowl when I finish making it. And I've colored it white, of course, and then I put it into a piping bag with a little tip on it that allows me to pipe just the tiniest little rosette, I'll call it, onto each one of these bibs. It's very sweet, and it's just the perfect touch. And now I'm getting started on the flower cookies. And so I'm adding some little branches, and then I'm going to start piping in some leaves. And so I'm using my projector for this because I really wanted to place the leaves exactly right. I'm not so good at freehanding this kind of stuff. I really do like the guidance of my overhead projector, and I do think it makes things more precise and things the same. I like all the cookies to look the same. You can see that when I post up the finished set, and you can see that all of these cookies will look the same. And so what I'm doing is I'm using my scribe tool to sort of pull the ends of the leaves so that they join together as if they are growing together. I've pulled out this second color of green. This is the same color of food coloring. I've just used a much less concentrated amount. Again, I'm pulling those leaves so they join together. Add a few more on the other side. Join them together by pulling them with the scribe tool. And now I'm going to add some little pink berries. And one more leaf. And so finish them up with some clusters of flowers, just like the customer ordered. And here's the finished set. I think it turned out beautifully. It's very delicate, it's very pretty, and it's time to package. And so I always package in glassine bags. Glassine is a smooth and glossy paper that is air, water, and grease resistant, and it is translucent so you can see what's inside. After I package all the cookies into the glassine bags, I will then fold over the top twice and close the bags with a sticker. Thanks for following along this week as I made this set of beautiful baby shower cookies. I'll be back next week with another video. Don't forget to like this one and subscribe to my channel.